As the old saying goes, looks can be deceiving. And for people with less visible disabilities, they know this saying all too well. In reality, 90% of the 4.4 million people with disabilities in Australia have a less visible one. So that's a big chunk of disabilities we don't see. If you're working in the commercial passenger vehicle industry, also known as the CPV industry, it's our job to ensure no one gets left behind. So in today's podcast, I'm lucky enough to be joined by two great guests as we discuss the experiences of those with disabilities that may be a little less visible. So today we have Nia and Mark. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nia, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, my name's Nia. I had a car accident 30 odd years ago, which left me with right hemiplegia, like I was paralysed down the right side of my body. And so now everything I do is a conscious effort, and it's a bit wonky. My right side doesn't keep up with my left.
And Mark, what about for you?
I was born hearing, so I could talk up until I was about 7 years of age. Somewhere between, I lost my hearing, and I taught myself to lip read. So I'm a lip reader, and that's the way I communicate. Obviously, I wear hearing aids so people can identify that I have a hearing impairment, but my main form of communication comes from looking at people, seeing their mouth, and understanding what they're saying.
Yeah, right, so that's really interesting. So you wear hearing aids as sort of a cue to show people that they need to notice that you need them to speak to you directly.
Correct.
Yeah, great.
Correct.
So great to have you both here. Let's jump into today's podcast. So as I mentioned earlier, there's other types of disability that may be less visible, and these may affect a person's behaviour. These are things such as brain injury, intellectual impairment, difficulty with expressive language, autism, and people with mental health issues. So we'll start with you, Nia. What's something that you wish that drivers, CPV drivers, knew about people who have less visible disability?
I would really like the drivers to treat all people the same or with courtesy before they assume somebody needs help, to ask them if they would like it, because often it's easier, I find for myself, it may look difficult what I'm trying to do, but it's far easier for me to do it myself than for somebody to come in and help me when they don't know what they're doing.
So are they making a lot of assumptions, obviously, about what you need and don't need?
Yes, I think so.
And
Yeah.
what would be the most common type of assumption that a driver would make?
Assuming that I need help, that I need some kind of assistance, that I need something. Yeah.
And you'd like to say to them, it's actually easier if you do the thing you need to do rather than have them help?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, great. And for you, Mark, so what's something that you wish you could tell a CPV driver about having a great experience in the car?
I've got 3 golden rules. My 3 golden rules is I need to see your lips when you're speaking to me. So I really don't like it when people turn away. When people turn away, I don't know what they're saying. So if they reaching for their phone, looking in different directions of traffic, I'll miss your key message. So keep communication to a minimum when we're at a standstill and I can pay attention on what's being said. Secondly, along that same line is I need lips. So I need to see the lips. At the moment, when we've got with various restrictions in passenger vehicles and people needing to wear masks, bear in mind that I don't necessarily pick up what is being said straight away. So give people with hearing impairment time to think about what's being transcribed to them so they can think in their head mentally, okay, this is what's being said, this is the appropriate answer. The second one is accents and mumbling changes the lip structure, the lip pattern. When someone mumbles, when someone does have a thick accent, it's similar. It takes me more time to process what is being said and what's being asked of me. If I am thinking about what's being said, don't assume that I'm dumb because I'm not. I'm just thinking about what you're saying to me. When people are talking, slow down your communications, slow down your talking, and really get your message across. Because, as I said, when you're moving your lip, when you slow down and communicate effectively, and I can see your lip, I know what you're trying to say. So, the slower your pattern, the quicker I transmit the message.
And I find it fascinating what you said about being able to decipher accents from lips. As we talked about earlier, you picked up that we had a New Zealand accent from the way we said certain words. It's quite a superpower.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. So I just want to touch on a topic that's, often come up in this regard with CPV drivers, and that's around the fact that if you have a very visible disability, a driver may treat you differently to perhaps meeting someone with a disability that's less visible. Do you have any thoughts around that, Nia?
I'd like drivers to, when they see somebody who's acting a little bit differently for whatever reason, to not assume they know why the person is acting like that. For instance, they're not drunk or they're not on drugs, but they have a problem or a difficulty walking like everyone else, and just give people that little benefit of the doubt kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not immediately jump to the conclusion, oh, they're like that because of A, B, or C.
Yeah. Are there any common misconceptions or assumptions that drivers make about you?
That I am either drunk or just a bit slow, a bit stupid, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'm not, of course.
And for yourself, Mark?
I really don't like when people take advantage of other people with disabilities, whether it be the taxi driver has chosen to take the most expensive route. I don't want drivers to assume that people are dumb. There are people with disabilities that are rocket scientists, doctors, etc. So we're not all dumb, we're not drunk, we're not on drugs. We're just different.
Are there any really positive experiences you've had on a trip recently? We could start with you, Nia.
Yes, I have a friend who uses a taxi quite regularly, and I've been in it's a maxi taxi, so I've been in it as well. And his driver is really, really helpful and just goes out of his way to make it a really good experience.
What kind of small things does the driver do?
He'll come round to the van door and open the door for us to get out, and he's just really courteous. I find, because I only have one arm that works properly, I mean this one works, but just it's not as reliable. Putting a seatbelt on sounds pretty easy. Often getting the other part, the bit that you put the seatbelt into, getting that organised, I can't do it as quickly as people expect. And this particular driver always waits and is very mindful that it takes me that little bit longer.
I think you're touching on a really common theme that we're seeing, which is around patience, and that's
Yeah.
patience with passengers taking their time to walk to the vehicle or get themselves set up in the vehicle or explain what they need or don't need.
And also it's like a disabled person, does not want to have to constantly retell their story about why they are like they are. So the driver needs to be a bit more mindful of asking questions. I know my friend who's totally blind really dislikes catching taxis because he's almost he feels he's interrogated when he is in a taxi.
And Mark, would you say patience is a core theme for you?
I can tell you, just when I was coming here today to speak to you, the driver I had was a lovely guy. Just really sat down with me, talked to me, and looked at me and gave me the time before we even. He said, "So where are we going today? What would you like to do?" And he was taking his time before. He wasn't just in a rush to go. He wanted to get that key information before we move, because once you move with your hearing impairment, it's hard to communicate key messages.
And it's, things like that, obviously, that make a key difference, that the driver looked at you to understand before the journey happened.
They probably don't realise it, but it makes a world of difference, in my opinion, in my mind, that I'm getting into a ride where this person values me, not as a person with a disability, as a human. So, yeah. That little thing goes a mere mile.
We've been touching a little bit on conversations within CPVs and between drivers and passengers. And one thing I'm hearing is that for someone with either a less visible disability or even a very visible disability, drivers often ask questions about that disability, and it can be frustrating to retell the story or retell why you are like you are. Is there anything that, Nia, you'd like to point out to drivers in that regard around small talk or something like that?
Yes, I don't think it should be brought up by the driver. I think if the person wants to tell them, that's fine. We are people that know how we are, and we don't want to have to tell our stories every time we meet somebody new.
Yeah.
It's very tiring.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mark, and from your point of view, what would be a more appropriate way that you feel a driver should interact with a person with a less visible disability, or even with a disability, when it comes to conversation?
When it comes to communicating with someone, don't make assumptions. Just let them enjoy their ride. That's all they want to do. People want to do is get from point A to point B. They want to feel valued. They want to feel respected. So if it's not okay for me to interrogate the driver, I don't want the driver interrogating me.
Can I just say something else? The majority of people that catch a CPV, the drivers don't ask them about their lives or why they are like they are. So why do it for people who act a bit differently? Doesn't really. It's a bit. Yeah.
It's a great point. I guess you'd feel singled out.
People often say, "How was your day?" or "What have you been doing?" And then that puts the onus on the person being asked the question, how much they want to tell.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that make sense?
So that's quite nice. Sorry, Mark, you wanted
But
to add
then on that as well, it brings up the conversation of the driver feeling they need to provide input. So, oh, my cousin has a friend that's got a hearing impairment,
Yeah.
and therefore they're the expert, or
Yeah.
they're the audiologist, or they're a doctor.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just, you're thinking, if I wanted medical advice, I would speak to the doctor, not the taxi driver.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a great way to put it. What I'm really hearing is that you want to really just enjoy your ride, and that, you know, if
Well, when you think about it, we're getting a ride to get from point A to point B, not to share our life story, or as Mark said, be diagnosed by somebody who doesn't really have the qualifications.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Thank you both for sharing, you know, today. It's been so insightful and valuable, and some really good key takeaways for drivers there. Is there any final thoughts you'd like to add around how you'd like to be treated in a CPV?
Just like anybody else.
And Mark, for yourself?
Patience, respect, and as a human.
Thank you both so much. So as a CPV driver, you get to provide a service to people with less visible disability that is safe, that's comfortable, and that makes them feel welcome and safe. So you really know that you have the power to help your community, the power to put a smile on your passengers' faces, and the power to make a real difference. Thanks for joining us.